All righty, we will go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody to, well, first, let me say it is Doula Appreciation Week. Today is the first day that kicks it off. This week runs annually from March 22nd through March 28th. So thank you all for joining us for our session talking about why doulas make a difference. So we'll have people kind of pop in throughout our time together, and that's perfectly fine. So if you know a friend who wants to tune in, please make sure that you let them know and drop them the link. But tonight we have two guests with us. We have our guest Lillian, and we have Christy, who will be joining us as well. Both of these ladies are doulas within our Doula Collective at the One Doula Collective. So if you two ladies just want to go ahead and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Lillian, you want me to go?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. So hello, I am Christy and I am a Day One doula. I have been with Day One almost 2 years now. We graduated in May? So it's been almost 2 years now, or a year now. I'm a foster care supportive visitation coach for foster care kids. I am a mother of 2 and welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lillian, and I am also a part of the Day One Doula Collective. I received my training with Christy, so we graduated in, was it May, June? So we've been doulas for about a year now. I am a mom of 2. I have 2 boys, 14 and 10, and professionally, I work in educational staffing.
Thank you, ladies. And if I didn't introduce myself, I apologize. My name is Kiera Baskin. I am the program manager for the Day One Doula Collective. We've been doing this work for the past couple of years. The Day One Doula Collective is a community-based doula piloted program right here in Kent County, specifically focusing on recruiting women of color from the Kent County area and providing them with the training and skills that are necessary to have a sustainable career pathway as a certified birth doula. And then in turn, we are sending those women right back out into their communities to provide services to families of color who desire to have a doula supported birth. What's really unique about our programming is that this service is completely at no cost to its participants. So both those who are interested in training as doulas, as well as participants receiving services as pregnant and expecting families. I am a mother of 2. I reside in the Kent County area. I also had a doula myself, so we'll be sharing a little bit about our experiences just as doulas working within the community if we've had doulas ourselves. So I want to get us kicked off with our first question, and either of you please feel free to jump in and answer this, but how were you first introduced to doula support?
I heard about doula support a long time ago, probably when I was pregnant with my oldest son, who's 14. But it was something that I didn't think was really accessible to me. 15 years ago in this area, I don't believe there were any doulas of color, at least not that I was aware of. So I really kind of thought it was a foreign concept, something that wasn't obtainable to me. And over the years, I did find it interesting. And probably about maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I heard about this program that was being launched through Baxter, and they were going to be training women of color to work as doulas in the community. And I thought that would be something interesting to take on. So from there, I started doing research on like what a doula was. And I found out I was doing some of the stuff that doulas do already, just with my friends and family, supporting them, offering emotional support, helping them get connected to resources. So to be involved in this program was like a really cool opportunity.
And the same for me, like Lillian said, is something that I've always wanted to do. So a lot of people don't know, when I graduated from high school, I started going to nursing school. And as I entered my 3rd year, I got sick with my lupus, and so I had to quit going to school. But it's always something that I wanted to do, and I've always did like the research. And like Lillian said, we've all been a doula whether it was a friend or a family member, but we just feel like it's not accessible to us just because of our skin color. And so I just started researching it just more and more and reading and researching. And when the Day One Doula Collective came about, my friend encouraged me to apply. And I'm like, nope, I already have so much stuff going on. And I waited, I think, until the last day that you could apply and apply for the program. And I'm so excited I did, because I've learned so much and grown so much as an individual as well, that I applied for the program. So I think for me, it was just something that I've always wanted to do. And as time went on, it's just a stronger passion for me.
Nice. Thank you both for sharing. One thing that I think about when you mentioned, Lillian, that having a doula almost seemed like this foreign concept with you when you were expecting your first. But what's really unique is that birth has always been communal amongst women, in particular amongst women of color. That's a part of our lineage. That's a part of our history. That's a part of our culture that that we don't talk about as much, because when we look at what the medical industrial complex or what just the hospital systems look like now, it's predominantly white male oriented. But if you look back a few generations, we as Black people, we were always involved in reproductive justice, reproductive health, or just health equity for, community members. I think about the history of grand midwives and just their contributions to our medical system today. I think about the transatlantic slave trade and just how Black women in particular have really paved the way for what we now see as obstetrics and gynecology practices. We have a really deep, dark rooted history with obstetrics and gynecology. But what I'm really glad to see is that we have community members and we have stakeholders really being intentional on funding and supporting efforts such as ours with the Day One Doula Collective to make sure that families have access to this service so that it's not foreign, but also we have the opportunity to really help community remember what has always been ours, which is birth work. So I just want to thank you all both for sharing about that. So we are going to go to our next question. And recent data shows that Black women are still continually dying during childbirth at higher rates than other populations. Why do we continue to see these disparities facing women of color? If either one of you would answer that.
I think for me, we get treated differently in the hospital settings. And I can say that just upon my own birthing experience with both of my kids, but also being a doula, going into the hospital and different hospitals with each client is so different. And like this recent client that I just got, she told me that she's like scared to advocate for herself. And so I think a lot of times women are scared to advocate for themselves, and they think that whatever the doctor says they're supposed to go with, or they can't say, like, no, I don't want a cesarean section because of this or, that. And also taking in account of health issues, preeclampsia, for one, me having experienced that with a birth, and the doctor's really not trying to listen to the mom. And so for me advocating for her, it was just like, hold on, stop, wait a minute. But for me, I think it's just the education piece that the doctors really don't pay attention to the clients, so to speak, and the clients not really, educating themselves on the risk of, like what could happen during pregnancy. I don't have to just listen to, this doctor because he feels like this or he feels like that. And they don't take preeclampsia serious in our community.
No, Chrissy, I agree with everything you just said. And some other things I think too is just the policies and the systems. They're just they're poor conditions, even for women of color who consider themselves to be educated or, you know, in somewhat from a place of privilege. There's so much implicit bias in the system, I feel. And I believe at one point I read something where they're saying that when physicians go through their training, they're trained, or I don't know if they still are, but at one point they were trained to that people of color experience less pain. So just taking all that into consideration, along with just healthcare in general, it's not person-centered. Like, they want to cookie cutter everything. They don't want you to ask questions. And then with all the other disparities, I feel like people of color just don't feel comfortable advocating for themselves, which is unfortunate. Then another thing I think too is we need more people of color in these systems, and people of color to use their voices. So, you know, joining boards, task force, whatever platform you have to amplify this situation, I think you should do that, because ultimately that's where the changes are made. Like in those boardrooms, in those task force, having those people's attention, and they're the ones who create the policies and procedures. So getting their attention, having them hear our concerns, hopefully will start to shift the tone and make some of those disparities better.
Thank you both. When I think about just currently what we see with Black women continuing to die during childbirth, is the fact that we have to have real, honest conversations with what's happening, and racism is very much still a thing. It's live and it's living within our communities, and it's affecting our birthing community. So we have to call it out for what it is. So racism is one of those things that continues to play a major part in the disparities that we see for Black and Brown people. I also think that we fail to recognize that even as Black people working within systems, you still could potentially perpetuate those same negative aspects and perceptions, although you self-identify as a Black person caring for other Black people. When you work within a system that has always historically just not been for the larger community, you can still see how those negative impacts would affect us in modern day obstetrics and gynecology. I think when we also talk about Black women dying in childbirth, and to your point, Lillian, like, you can't education your way out of this. Like, you can have education, you can have money, but you still are at risk for having those same negative impacts and outcomes as the next person. And I think about, in particular, like Beyonce, Serena, Cardi B, Black women who have, you know, crazy access. We always talk about access being a thing, like we need more access, we need more access. But is that truly what it is? Because those three women in particular have a crazy amount of support. They have a crazy amount of access, and they have the funding to be able to receive the best care and treatment in our communities, yet they still experienced disparate outcomes as it relates to their birthing experience. Serena having to really advocate for herself to say, like, something doesn't feel right, even being discharged, you know, from the hospital and then having to go back, you know, for a blood clot. Beyonce having a, you know, emergency cesarean section. And we know locally within the Kent County area, we still continue to have a high cesarean rate for Black women in particular. But I think, you know, what we've been doing is great. Like, we are working towards becoming more equitable, but I think we really need to take a look at the systems that are at play and talk about what it looks like to completely start over. Like, we're still continuing to try to work within systems, like I said, that have historically not been for their larger communities and for BIPOC folks. When we think about inclusion and just the way our consent forms are worded, when we talk about the family dynamics that we see, when we talk about the literature that's available for the providers working within our systems, there are no images of Black bodies or brown bodies. So how are providers even able to diagnose our conditions if their literature isn't inclusive of, all body types. So just a few things to kind of consider as we think about why we continue to still see these disparate outcomes for birthing families within our community. So moving on to our next question, um, and Lillian and Christy, please feel free, both of you, to answer this. Did either of you have a doula during any of your birthing experiences, or anyone that acted as a doula for you, even if you didn't technically know what that term meant? And then how was the experience for you having someone be there and kind of advocating for you?
For me, I didn't have an actual doula, but here you've met my mom. She a bulldog. Like, she is gonna go to war. And so I can say with Journey, because it was my horror story, like I told you, it was just all bad. Like from the beginning to the end, it was just all bad. But my mom made sure it was just like, nope, you're not doing this right. You're not gonna do this. You're not gonna leave my child like this. What is going on? Like, if you gotta go get the CEO, I want them down here now. So I can say that honestly, my mom was my doula. Like, she did not leave. Like, she literally sat in that chair from when I got there until when I left. And even after that, she was just like, if you got problems, you let me know. I'm gonna call them. Like, she just was my doula. And the same thing with RJ, but with RJ, it was just a better experience. And Dr. Mathis was, she was my doctor, but she was also my doula, because she advocated just saying like, no, we're not going to do this. This doesn't need to be done. Like, I want a reason. If you're going to do this, like, what's the reason? Like, I want an answer. And it's not just because, oh, she has lupus or, this or that. Like, she's perfectly healthy. So there's no need to do, like these things that you're trying to do. So I can say for me, it was my mom and definitely Dr. Mathis.
So oddly enough, I'm like Christy. I didn't have doula support. But oddly enough, I would say two people I say served as my doula. My husband, who actually works in healthcare, was kind of like my doula support, from the advocacy side and from like the education side. When I gave birth to my first son, oddly enough, right after the delivery, I don't remember any of this, but he told the doctor that she doesn't seem right. Like, something seems off with her. Like, I guess the way I was responding and my color, and they kind of dismissed it. And then he just kept persisting, like, no, something's off. And because he had that knowledge from healthcare, he was able to speak up and say, well, like, can we look at this? Can we do that? And then in the whole time of they're having this conversation, and he's trying to get them to take his concern serious, I guess like I passed out or lost consciousness or something. So anyways, they were able obviously to revive me and I was fine. But I always think back to that experience, like, well, what if he didn't have that knowledge with that background? What if he wasn't that kind of person that was able to kind of speak their language and be persistent, but then do it in a way that didn't let them dismiss him? I think maybe, who knows what would have happened. And then also too, obviously my mom, she gave me a lot of information and support around, being a parent, birthing, like what to expect. I swear I call her like every day with questions. I know she was tired of me by the time I had the baby. But no, those people I say would definitely acted as my doula support, and really have been there to take that journey with me.
Thank you both for sharing. I think it's really important to hit on, your point, Lillian, of like your husband's like just intentionality and like just directness in making sure that providers did not ignore things that were, vital and important, because, your situation could have been, gone left for the most part. But I always talk to families while I'm practicing and working alongside them, is that the education that doulas provide for families goes way beyond, a childbirth education class. Families have to be educated on the fact that, like, hey, walking into this hospital system, like, you are, already like going against the grain, or just already facing potential, negative impacts and outcomes. Um, so I think it's important for families to realize that. I also think it's important for, new and upcoming doulas or individuals who have a desire to practice in birthwork to know that, like, yes, it's the cute photos that you see on Instagram where we get to work with families and we get to see water births and hold babies, but you have to have tough skin coming into this work. Um, a lot of providers aren't necessarily familiar with doula support. A lot of what we hear is that, families are being dismissed, their concerns are being taken seriously. You walk in with a birth plan and you're already like written off as if it's not important. Um, and you have to, as a birth worker, be able to navigate that and be able to support your clients so that they feel empowered, to say, like, hey, these are things that are important to me. And how are you, as my healthcare provider, going to make sure that we honor this? Um, so understanding that yes, birth work is a very beautiful um journey to walk alongside these families, but you have to have tough skin. Like Christy said, like her mom was a bulldog, and oftentimes when we're in those labor and delivery rooms, we have to be bulldogs too and make sure that our clients are being heard, and that they feel seen. So just know that um, within my own experiences, I did have a doula, and it was really an amazing experience to have someone truly see me, especially with birthing in a hospital setting. Like once you get to the hospital, they hook you up to all of the things, and then it's like, okay, now they're watching the monitors. Are they watching me? Like, are they listening to me? And oftentimes what we would see is that no, like doctors and nurses were watching the monitors. They weren't checking in with how you were doing emotionally, not recognizing that some people have white coat syndrome. When you go into the hospital, you automatically have anxiety. You have to be able to address that as care providers, and making sure that you're not only focused on healthy baby. It's healthy mom, healthy baby, healthy family. Like that is bare minimum. Um, but also just being holistic and knowing that it takes more than what we've been doing. Because if we do more, we wouldn't continue to see, our babies being born too soon, too small, or Black women continuing to die, or, the lack of inclusion in the language that's being used within the hospital settings. Like there's just so much more we can do. Um, but I'm thankful that we do have communities um, that have, active doulas practicing. I am so thankful for you ladies for participating in the Day One Doula Collective and really being trailblazers, for, our future. Like this not only impacts us, like it impacts our community and future generations. And who knows, like one of your children might decide to become a doula and they might be dueling, one of our members of our collective's baby, or one of their friends babies once they grow and get older. I mean, there's just so much opportunity um, that is just available with having programs such as these, that is really intentional on supporting individuals from the community and then supporting families within those same communities. But I want to go to our next question. And when you think about the care that you received in particular with your pregnancy, were you involved enough to make the decisions about your care? And if not, what opportunities were there to improve? And I really want to spend a little bit of time on this just because I know that oftentimes we don't see where individuals are that involved or really know what's going on. And I think when we talk about this, it will truly highlight, why doulas make a difference. So any of our panelists, feel free to go ahead with that question. And again, it was when you think back on your own pregnancy experiences, were you involved enough to make decisions about your care? And if not, what opportunities were available?
So with Journey, I would say no, just because they considered me high risk. And so that was my first pregnancy. I was 25. I was the child that was never having kids. I was going to be the rich auntie. Like I didn't want kids. But I was considered high risk. And so I feel like they didn't give me a lot of choices, even though I did speak up for myself so, but I feel like I didn't get a lot of choices or opportunities that I should have gotten, even with the induction with her. And just going through, like you said, when you get to the hospital.
Christy, we lost you a second.
On what are they looking for, with the baby monitor. And even after that, like Lillian said, after she had her baby, you feel funny and it's like, okay, why am I feeling like this? Like they weren't checking my cervix like they were supposed to. I developed blood clots. It was a mess. And so I had to literally call my own doctor and say, can you please come over here and help me? Because something is not right. They're not, paying attention to anything that I'm saying. And I really need help. And so once my doctor came over there, it was like him and my mom both were yelling, at staff, because it was just like, no, like this is not something you do. Like I went from having a baby and they were trying to make me go up to the recovery floor and it was just blood clots everywhere, y'all. Like, sorry to be nasty, but it was just not good. And so I feel like a lot of things could have happened differently if they would have just listened. And also having those bedside manners. I tell people all the time, I don't care. The doctors now do not have bedside manners. I got in trouble when I worked in the hospital for telling doctors, like, your manners suck. You don't have time. You don't listen to the patients. And we know our bodies better than anybody. And it's just like, to me, it's just like a number. Like, I'm only in here for 5 minutes. I'm going to say what I got to say, and then I'm going to leave out. And then you sit there and just be like, okay, what about what I had to say? With RJ, it was different. Like, I had a choice in everything, even like my lactation specialist. Like, I didn't have to use theirs. I called Toya, which is my best friend's sister. She's Black. And so I didn't have to, use their breast pump. Like, I could use my own, even down to my own clothes. Like, you didn't have to wear the gown, you could wear your own clothes. And so I feel like with him, I had so many choices versus Journey, I didn't have any at all.
And Christy, you made a really good point. And I know I spend a little bit of time, talking about the experiences of Black women in particular. And again, I really want to hit the nail on the head with that one, is because locally within King County and all across our nation, we continue to see Black women dying during childbirth in particular. And that's so very much important when we think about just the overall just topics of health equity and reproductive justice. We have to address this issue with Black women. And it's really important. But go ahead, Lillian.
I was gonna say, so initially with my first pregnancy, no, I didn't feel like I had control of the experience. The provider that I had, she wasn't a good fit. I didn't figure that out until like almost time for me to deliver. A lot of times I feel like I was dismissed. My concerns weren't taken serious. But then again, going back to that, having a support person. So I would share my concerns with my husband. And so he started going to my doctor's appointments with me, and he would ask questions, and he would help advocate for me. And different things like that. And then even at the hospital, like I typed up a birth plan. I got there, it was dismissed. They really didn't take it serious. But with my second pregnancy, my kids are 4 years apart. The provider wasn't a good fit. So I had the time, the privilege of being able to find a doctor that was a better fit for me. So I found an OBGYN. I developed a relationship with her over those, few years, and I felt comfortable with her in her practice. So when I was pregnant again, like I already had a connection with her, or already had a rapport with her. So I felt quite comfortable asking questions and expressing my concerns. And the one thing that you don't always find too in healthcare, like I trusted her. I developed preeclampsia, and I was really nervous about it. I had a lot of anxiety around it. But she always made me feel like everything was going to be okay. And everything was. So I do think that that matters. But I think, over that time, like really finding your voice and speaking up. And then sometimes a doula is great to take with you. But if you're not in a situation to have a doula, or if you don't have a doula, or your doula can't make it, have a support person to go with you. They're another set of eyes, another set of ears. It's like, I don't want to say like ganging up on the providers, but kind of like that, if it's like, if it's one of them and multiple people in the room, it's harder for them to dismiss a couple of people saying the same thing versus if it's just a one-on-one. So that would be my advice. If possible, before you have a child, find a provider that's a good fit for you. And even if you don't, like, I didn't realize that you can switch at any time. Like, you're not locked into that person. That's something that they really don't tell you. But I just assumed like I was like 7 months pregnant. I was like, I don't like this lady. I guess I'm stuck. I didn't know that I could switch providers. So had I known.
To your point, Lillian, about like, there's something about somebody having your back, like a dedicated person that has your back. And that's one of the things that doulas do that make a difference. That trust and that reassurance. We provide, or the hallmark of the services that we provide, if you will, is that continuity of care. So when you sign on with your doula, like, that's who's going to be with you. Like, when things get tough, when things go left for good or bad, which is why, our program is called the Day One Doula Collective, is because we truly are there from day one. And we want our families to know that. And, it's hard for providers, and we recognize that. So, as we talk about these experiences that, we've either personally had, or, through, the sharing of our clients and community stories, we want to recognize that being a provider is hard. Working within systems that have historically not been the best for, like I said, the majority population, it is hard. Doing the internal work to say, I have bias, that is hard. And we are absolutely making efforts to, improve that. But it's also worth saying that we're not doing the best that we could be doing, and there needs to be changed. And until we get to the point where, we go beyond talking about access, we go beyond talking about what's equitable and what's not. We have doulas that are really on the front line supporting these families and making sure that they feel seen and feel heard. But we're establishing those relationships and that rapport where our community trusts us. That's why doulas make a difference. That's why the Day One Doula Collective makes a difference, is because not only are our doulas knowledgeable on the things that relates to birthing outcomes for our families and our community, but they live within the community. It's very, very likely that we'll run into our clients at the grocery store. Some of our kids share the same pediatrician. We go to the same play groups. And that's what's really unique. That's why, doulas are so special, is because not only are you providing that reassurance and that trust, during your prenatal visits that you have with your clients, but you can also catch them outside of that. You can also catch, your clients, like I said, out in the community, and more familiar faces. And I want to recognize that we do have one of our other doulas on the call today. Flor Evans is also a part of the Day One Doula Collective. And Flor, if you want to take a moment, please feel free to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. As Kira said, I'm Flor Evans, and I'm one of the Day One doulas. I've been doing this for almost 2 years. I love providing support to my community. I love my family. They are my family. Once they are my clients, they become family. So I no longer call them my clients. I call them family, because we've been together since day one. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Thanks for sharing. All right, we are going to move on to our next question. And any of the panelists, please feel free to jump in and answer this. But what is one thing that you want your community to know about doula support? I know we've been dropping gems like this entire time we've been on the call, but if there was one particular thing that you would want to stick with families about what they need to know about doula support. I'd be interested in hearing your perspectives.
I would say, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to tell the doctors or the nurses or whoever you're talking to, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're telling me. You know, your health is important. So if there's something that you don't understand, make sure that they talk to you at your level. You're not a doctor, you're not a nurse, so there are things that sometimes you don't know. So just make sure that you ask questions, because they can tell you to do something and you can just agree to it and not even know what's happening. Don't even know what the risks are, don't know what the pros and the cons are, or even the benefits. So, you know, you could say yes or no to something that you don't even know and agree to something that you have no idea what you're agreeing on. So just make sure that you always ask the whys, always ask and ask. And I don't care how upset they get, because sometimes they might. Just ask, because you have that right. You have the right to ask and to know what's going on with your health.
Yes, definitely. I would say for our community, I would say more awareness about doula support. Oftentimes, even now I've been, working in this doula space for about a year now. I still get people who they've seen, I posted things about being a doula and whatnot. They still come up to me and they're not sure what that is. Like they think that, like I've become like a midwife and I'm delivering babies, or they're not really sure what goes along with doula support and the benefits of having a doula. So I always take that time to educate and enlighten them. But I do think that there needs to be more awareness with our community of doula support, and that doula support is accessible to you. It's not this foreign concept that, like how I felt when I was pregnant. It is something that is obtainable. There are women of color in your community who can provide you with support. And so just reach out for the support because of all the benefits.
And I would agree with both Flora and Lillian, but I want to let women know, trust your body. And I say trust your body because you go in the hospital, the doctor is rushing you like, come on, baby, we're going to have this baby. Come on, come on. Trust your body. When it's time for that baby to come, that baby is going to come. But the more relaxed you are, it definitely helps with that. When you're in labor, so I just say trust yourself and trust your body, and don't let family members or the doctors or nurses make that a bad experience for you.
Thanks for sharing, everyone. Just a couple of points, Christy, to your point in particular about trusting your body. I think we almost have to take a step back and talk to families about familiarizing yourself with your body. Like, what are its functions? What does it do? What is it supposed to do under certain circumstances? And what I see with a lot of families is that they don't know. It's really important to know your anatomy. It's important to know what your body naturally does. That's how you have those better experiences with those providers, because you're able to tell them specifically what your body does and does not do under different circumstances, or just what you know just about what your body is supposed to do. So I think it's really important for families to start to have those conversations about familiarizing yourself with your body, especially as Black women. We have, like I said, a really deep, dark history with obstetrics and gynecology, and we weren't necessarily always afforded the opportunity to explore our bodies in the way that we needed to. Our bodies were experimented on, and now we have the opportunity, like I said, as birth workers and as Black women, or just birthing folks in general, to remember what has always been ours, to change the narrative about what it means to be educated on childbirth and reproductive health. And I'm just excited that we're moving towards that. I also think it's really important for families to recognize that you have the opportunity to plan early. Like, plan early for your doula, plan early for your midwife. like I said, there's doulas within your community. We are becoming more accessible to families so that it doesn't feel like a luxury. Birth support should never be a luxury. Everybody has doula someone in their life. And I just think it's important for us to talk to families about, the experiences that they desire for their birthing experiences, and talk about what it means to plan early to have a doula. And Lillian, to your point, with families not 100% understanding the role of a doula, I think the easiest way to remember the roles of a doula and a midwife is that doulas coach and midwives are the ones that are actually catching your babies. So that's an easy way for community members to recognize the difference between doulas and midwives, is that your doula is there, that's literally walking alongside you throughout this journey and coaching you throughout the process. And the midwife that is there to catch your baby on the day of delivery. So I know in the interest of time, I'm just going to go ahead and throw out our last question for our panelists. And that is surrounding, like I said, this topic of Doula Appreciation Week, which is both recognized in the city of Grand Rapids as well as the state of Michigan as a proclaimed day. So in your opinion, and each of our panelists, please feel free to answer this. Why do you think doulas make a difference?
I think doulas make a difference, just based off our conversation that we had, just to stop the disparities, the bias, and just be that extra support that our families need. I know with me doing birth work, some of my clients don't have that support. And so just having one support person makes a huge difference mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. So just having that support for them, just saying, hey, like, you're not in this alone, like I am with you. And I want you to have a good experience outside of this as well. And I think also building those important relationships. I still talk to all my clients. Like if it's just a quick text message and say, hey, how you're doing? They reach out to me and say, hey, Miss Chrissy, look at how big the baby is now. And so I really appreciate that, because that just lets me know like they really appreciated what I did for them. And if I can help one person, how many more can I help and bring along in this journey?
I wanted to also say that I do agree with what Miss Christie is saying. And also, I know that doulas are important in anyone's life. It's because we can support the moms and they can avoid getting epidurals if they chose not to have them, because we are there to support them and we'll give a massage. We'll just do different positions that they can get comfortable. Having a doula can also avoid, in many cases, having a cesarean. And also, like the birth is less stressful because you have someone there that is there to support you. So I believe that, that is a really important role, because when you are having a baby and you are in pain and you have family members that are not supporting you and pushing you to get the epidural or to do this and to do that, and your doula is there, letting you know, hey, it's okay, I'm here for you, I can help you, that makes a big difference.
I agree with both what Flor and Christy said. The only thing I would add to is doulas are important because they help you have the birth you want. Doulas offer non-judgmental emotional support. Oftentimes family members, friends are great, but then sometimes, they want to push their beliefs and values on you, and you may not agree, which is fine. I think where the doula makes a difference is that person, they don't share their opinion. Like, it's what you want. They support you. They're there for you throughout your pregnancy and delivery and postpartum as well. Even in the hospital, with the nurses, they have other things to do. They have to chart, whatever. They have a lot of stuff going on. So they're not in the room with you all the time. And family can be there too. But I think having that constant support, that person that you can rely on, that person that you trust there, that knows that they want what's best for you. I think it makes all the difference. And I do agree with what Kira said previously. A doula should not be a luxury. It shouldn't be this thing that only people of privilege get to experience. Everyone should have access to a doula and doula support because everyone can benefit from it in some way.
Thank you all for sharing like so many amazing perspectives and just ways doulas make a difference. I think for me personally, doula work is about reclamation. And like I said, remembering what's always been ours and the opportunity to rewrite some of the narratives that are out there about, our history and just what it has been. And being able to have resources that folks can find within their community is really important. I think doulas make a difference because, like we've mentioned during our time together, it's about that trust aspect. It's about that reassurance. It's about knowing where to go for help and feeling comfortable and asking for help. And oftentimes, as Black women, like I'm sure you all have heard, like the strong Black woman complex and feeling like we have to do it, all by ourselves. And that's not true. That's the furthest thing from the truth. Like raising babies and having babies was never something that anybody was supposed to do by themselves. Yet we have women on a day-to-day basis, literally screaming almost for help and for assistance and not knowing where to go. So I think one important aspect of doula support is just the ability to be able to walk alongside someone throughout their journey without judgment, and being another set of eyes, another set of ears during some of the most intense moments. So I am just thankful to be in community with some amazing women who are supporting families who are birthing. I think doulas are something that are necessary. It's about rewriting the narrative for what our healthcare system should look like. It's about diversifying our healthcare. It's about, recreating not systems, but recreating something new. Um, that's what I really think doulas are here to do, is to really advocate for families and help to rewrite that narrative about where we go in the future, and what support looks like for families. But I want to thank you all for joining us tonight for our discussion, just talking about why doulas make a difference in the community. Like I said, we are celebrating an amazing week, and uplifting all of the individuals within our doula collective, in particular, the doulas of Day One Doula Collective. But also, we want to give a shout out to all of the doulas within the state of Michigan, within the nation, all over the world, who are grinding and doing the hard work. And walking alongside families. That is such a beautiful thing, to be able to walk alongside a family during one of the most vulnerable moments of life and one of the most important moments of life. So if you are, if you know a doula within your neighborhood, or your sister, your cousin, whomever is a doula, take some time out to wish them, well this week, to send them, a love note, to leave a review on their business page, but really uplifting them and letting them know that you see them and they also feel heard, because this work is hard. It is an absolute privilege to be able to walk alongside families, but it is also one of the hardest labors of love, literally. So like I mentioned, if you see a doula within your community, give them a hug, give them a handshake, a fist bump. Like I said, leave a review, post a picture of you and your doula. But we want to take some time this week to really highlight the work that doulas are doing and why we make a difference. So Doula Appreciation Week in the state of Michigan is recognized March 22nd through March 28th. And I want to take some time to thank all of our panelists for joining us today and sharing about your own personal experiences, and the experiences that you've had working as a Day One Doula Collective member, and supporting families within your community. So Lillian, Flora, and Christy, thank you so much for being here with us and sharing. And we are at time, but I do want to allow just a moment if there's any final words from you all.
I'll just say thank you, Kiera, for giving us this opportunity. for me, I would have never thought in a million years that I would have an opportunity to actually be a doula and to get the training that we did, basically free, and just to build a sisterhood with different women. And we still have that sisterhood and we still can count on each other, share resources with each other, even help assist in births with each other. I think that I just want to say thank you and Tiffany, for providing us with that opportunity, for allowing us to be in Day One Doula, collecting us, for trusting us, for giving us the chance to be in a community and do the birthing work, and just really, really supporting us when we need you to. So thank you.
I agree. Thank you, Kara, and to the facilitation team of the Day One Doula Collective for putting this together, and also to the doulas of the program. This has truly been an amazing experience. I love the relationships not only that I have been able to form with women in the community, supporting them with births, but also relationships and the connections I've been able to build within the cohort. This is something that I probably in a million years would have never really done had I not seen this opportunity and felt led and passionate to support families. I'm not really a risk taker. So stepping out on this and trying something new has helped me grow as a person. And I feel that I get as much out of this experience in supporting families as I give, like, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to thank all of you ladies for the connection and the relationship that we've built over the last year.
Yes. I also want to say that I am grateful for Day One Doula Collective and all the education and training that they have provided to us. I'm grateful for that. I'm also grateful for my sister's doula. You guys are amazing. Anytime that I need help or I'm going through something, you guys are always there to support me. Kiara, thank you so much also for being there, for being the manager that you are, and for supporting us and for giving us the tools that we needed to become the doulas that we are today. And to the community, I love you. I'm here for you. And yeah, like I said before, I'm not only your doula, I'm also part of your family. So it's your choice if you want me to be there as part of your family for a lifetime or for as long as you want.
Thank you, ladies, so much. So you will see more from the Day One Doula Collective. If you're not already following us on social media, please feel free to do so. We are on Facebook at the Day One Doula Collective, as well as Instagram at the Day One Doula Collective. So thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave it in the comment section, and we'll make sure to get those answered for you. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.